wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. Lauren LaRosa is filling in for Jess, and we got a special guest in the building. We have Simone Amelia Jordan. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I haven't been here in 8 years.
8 years, long time.
I did the Breakfast Club's first photo shoot.
I was
Do
gonna
you
say
remember?
that. Yes. One of our, I think that was our first official photo shoot for a big brand.
It was
'Cause
for
you
Dr.
with
J's.
Dr. J's.
Dr. J's, yep.
And you dressed as the movie.
The Breakfast Club.
There's the Breakfast Club.
Yep.
That was a long time ago.
What made you feel like we were right for that? Like, what was the vision?
For Dr. J's?
Well, just in the moment. Yeah.
Oh, I remember
What year
Angela.
was that? 2011?
When you just started the show.
Yeah, 2011, 2012. Yeah.
2011.
Yep.
That's over a decade ago now.
Yeah.
It was so exciting. The show was so exciting, and we wanted to work with you guys to model for the website. I mean, you're obviously natural models, so. And I forget the characters that you took from the movie.
I was.
You were Judd Nelson.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't remember who I was.
I can't remember. The photos, I was looking for them online, but like that was a time when everything wasn't online. So I think they've kind of disappeared into the ether somewhere. But it was a great photo shoot.
We had them somewhere, though. I can't remember where.
Did they go in the source or something? I think they went somewhere, those photos.
I remember.
But it was a great photo shoot. It was very cute.
How did you know early on, though, that, like, the show was going to be,
Oh.
like, you know what I mean? Like, you came to get them. Like, how did you know
Yeah,
they were
it
gonna
was
be lit?
magic. I mean, they all were such individuals and had their own flavor and brought something special to the mix. New York was so excited at the time about the show. So we knew that, like, we wanted to get involved. And for me, as the content director at Dr. J's, it was a no-brainer to get the brands that we sold onto these guys because they were about to be everywhere. And look at them now.
Yeah.
I know. What is your thought process, or what do you think about these sneaker stores now? Because there's so many closing down since you were with Dr. J's. I mean, Foot Locker said they're closing a bunch of stores. I think Foot Action, Athlete's Foot is up out of here. There's so many stores now that are not doing well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, everything's changed, right? I was at drjs.com kind of at the height of like the quote unquote urban fashion wave, and being a kid from the other side of the world, we used to wear fake versions of the brands because they weren't available in Australia. And that's why I reached out to Dr. J's in the first place, because everyone was rocking fake baby fat and fake apple bottoms. And I was like, no, I think we need to step our game up. So I reached out to Dr. J's to advertise in my magazine that I had in Australia, which was the first on-sale hip-hop and R&B magazine, inspired by The Source and inspired by Vibe. And so we developed a relationship that way. Then they hired me to come to New York and work for them. And I saw the wave of those brands crashing and burning, and now into a point where fashion is all over the place, right? In terms of the style that we wear, anything goes now. There's no, and the style used to reflect the streets, right? And so that has all changed. But it's a tough day. Everything's shutting down, whether it's fashion or even coming back to New York. You used to be able to grab a bite at any time of the night, but I think it was like after 10 p.m. and the restaurants I used to go to, it all shut down. So I think COVID had a lot to do with that too. So,
How many hats have you worn, Simone? You hip-hop journalist, personality,
Fashion.
fashion, brand,
Photographer.
I'm an immigrant. We get the job done, as they say. What can I say?
Now an author.
Yes, like you, I'm trying to get on your level. I think I've got undiagnosed ADHD, as they say. I've always been driven by hip hop in everything that I do, which hasn't been easy coming from a country where hip hop isn't respected that much.
Well, tell us about that too. Tell us about growing up in Australia with hip hop. How
That
big
Iggy's
was
fault?
it? Was it easy?
It started way before Iggy.
Oh, okay.
Was that Iggy's fault?
She didn't say she wasn't a part of the problem.
Well, it's funny, when I met Iggy, I did Iggy's first on-camera interview for drjs.com, and I initially thought, I'm not going to like this girl because she kind of represents everything that I have fought against my whole career.
Damn.
Yeah. A pretty white girl coming in, and like I wanted to know how genuine she was and authentic to the roots of the art form and paying respect to its black and brown founders. But I felt I've got this like mama vibe, and I felt very protective over her when I met her. And then obviously her career skyrocketed, and we didn't keep in touch. But
I like Iggy. I ain't
I
gonna
was
sit there
about
and
to
act like I
say,
didn't like Iggy. I liked Iggy.
she was she loved what she did. She loved, and whatever the feedback and response to that was is out of her control, right? But she genuinely loved what she was doing. So growing up in Australia with hip hop it's tough. We have our incredible First Nations Aboriginal community who embraced it from very early on. I'm Lebanese background, like a lot of Arab Australians embraced it very early on, but we never got the respect. It was very similar to the States, but our minorities are even smaller. We're like smaller minorities in a majority white country. And so it never got the respect that it deserved. It still doesn't to this day get the respect that it deserves.
Even there? Like they don't have their own scene there? Like,
well, funnily enough, it has a very small scene, but it's run by white people still. And coming back after living in New York for a decade, and achieving what I did and ended up at the Source magazine becoming the content director. When I came home, because I got very sick, I got Crohn's disease and got really sick trying to keep up with the Joneses in New York for 10 years. So came home and everyone was like, oh, you're going to be the top of it. When you get home, you're going to get every job. You'll be at the radio stations. I still don't get, the doors are still closed to me.
Wow.
Because the only hip hop and R&B radio station in Australia has only 2 live shows and both are hosted by blonde white women.
wow.
Yeah, so then you see it.
Are they good?
Nah, that's up to opinion. But I will say, like, you know, not throwing affirmative action or anything like that in the mix. Are they deserving is the question. Are they deserving? Because like I said, our Aboriginal community, we have so many talents that really should be. We've got a really multicultural community there that isn't represented in the art form, which is pretty insane.
Right.
So, yeah, I felt more accepted here. I felt more accepted when I got to New York. I was like, these are my people. This is home. Because I'm a hustler, obviously. Like you said, I've got a million gigs. And that's what the story of the book is about. It's about like chasing your dreams, even though you get all these doors closed in your face. It's my love letter to this music genre that I think a lot of people forget has changed the world. And it's changed the world in so many ways. And I've always been very vocal about paying tribute to its Black founders. And a lot of people don't do that enough, I think. So that book is the love letter to that.
In its purest form, hip hop brings people together.
Oh, in its purest form, it has taught me and so many other kids around the world to be proud of myself too. Like I recognized the pro-Black consciousness when I was a kid in the late 80s. And I'm like, their self-empowerment made me feel pride in being Middle Eastern at a time when stereotypes were rampant. And I was really being taught by the movies I was watching and the media I was seeing to hate myself and to think of myself in a negative way. And I'm like, no, Public Enemy are telling me fight the power, you know? So I can't even begin to describe what Black people in the United States have done for marginalized kids around the world in terms of our own pride.
What did your family think about when you found out this love for hip hop?
Yeah.
Because even in the States here,
Yeah.
when hip hop first came around, everybody
Yeah.
thought it was just gonna be fatty. They thought it was gonna be quick. They thought it was just some hippity hop. But it caught on. So what was your family like?
My family loved it. Like I was raised by a single mother, and and by my grandmother too. So very matriarchal family, and my mum loves hip hop. Like my mum, I think my mum's a rebel, so she recognized that kind of rebellious fight the power instinct that it has. And I started rapping at 9. That's the first chapter in the book. But I very quickly realized that was not my role. And so
I think we all started rapping here. I think.
Do you think
he was?
Yeah,
Dizzy,
you
Dizzy
did.
Van Winkle. I was a rapper at first. And just
I still think
We
I
all
should drop
dreamed a little
mixtape.
dream.
I think you should.
I think I should drop a mixtape for
Well,
sure.
that's another thing. Like women's empowerment has been a really big theme in my career. I did an all-female mixtape back around those days, 2011, called Woman on Top, with really early verses from Iggy. Rhapsody was on there really early. I had a Reebok sneaker come out in 2012 where we did this freestyle thing, and it's on YouTube. And like it's a really young Rhapsody and who else was on there? Ty Phoenix, like all these female rappers. Brianna Perry at the time.
Brianna.
Remember Brianna? Yeah, and like so many. Because to me, like, and especially championing Black women for me was very important too. Like, I'm very respectful of the culture, and I know that I'm a guest in the culture, but I also know that I have something to contribute as an international kind of representative of it too. Yeah.
What inspired you to go from doing like, I guess, hip hop journalism to writing a whole memoir?
Well, I've always been very careful about telling the stories that I feel Black journalists should tell. So I'm like, I can tell a memoir because it's my story, right? So I thought that would be a good place to start on a book journey. And I had always thought about writing my memoir, but I thought my story was so singular and very rare that it might not connect to a lot of people. But as I was writing it, I'm like, oh my God, there are a lot of themes here that, especially for young women, I'm talking about like racism, classism, sexism, being groomed as a teenager because I wanted to be on radio and I wanted to be a journalist so badly, getting taken advantage of by like an older guy in the industry who was dangling carrots. Like these things happen to women in the industry. They're very prevalent. And so as I'm telling this story, I'm like, wait a minute, these themes are going to resonate. So I kept forging ahead. I entered a contest actually during COVID. It's called the Ritual Prize for Writers. And I thought, I'm not going to win this because publishing, again, like every other industry in Australia, is very white. They're not going to understand the story. But I ended up beating like almost 1,000 entries and I won the Ritual Prize. And then they offered me the book deal, Hachette, Australia. And the book came out in Australia about a year ago. And it's just come out just this week in the States. So I think there's a lot in there for fans of hip hop and people that are living between cultures to relate to.
I love the title.
You mentioned the grooming.
Yeah.
When did you realize that that wasn't what was supposed to be happening?
Oh,
because I think there's that moment
yeah.
where you're like, this is not, I don't have to do this.
Absolutely. I got myself in a very sticky situation as a teenage girl with an older man who I didn't pick up on the signals, and I thought he was just encouraging me to work in radio and train me. But I narrowly avoided a very serious situation there. I think that's why I was able to write about it in the book. There was another situation when I was working at another radio station here in New York, and we had Mystical come in. And it's funny, this is pre-MeToo. So this is a time when, as women in hip hop, we had so few opportunities to be on radio, to be the male's sidekick. And shout out to DJ Green Lantern, who I was on the show with him, and he said to me, like, I don't want to talk. He's like, I want to play the music. I'm going to let you host the show. And I was like,
that was a great show, by the way.
Oh, Invasion Radio. Yeah, thank you. And he used to put people on the spot. And like, it was a great show. Thank you. And so we had this situation where, this guy at that point, Mystical, had like a rap sheet literally of offenses. But in hip hop, in those days, we knew, but we didn't know. It was like if you go back to people that were probably in media during the Aaliyah, R. Kelly days, they knew, but they didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
And so he made some very vulgar comments to me when I was just sitting like this at the desk.
This is Mystical?
Yeah. And I felt extremely uncomfortable, but I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to be difficult. I didn't want to throw him under the bus anymore. I felt very protective of the talent that I interviewed too. So you're grappling with all of that. But then when I wrote the book years later and I reflected on it, I thought I'm so proud of the young women today who for the most part call things out straight away. And that's because other women have paved the way for that. Right. And I felt in that time, I wasn't as vocal about a situation that I should have been. So I think we've come a long way from that. But these things still happen, right? Women are being more vocal, but it still happens. So I hope through the book, without being preachy, young women can learn some lessons as they move ahead in their careers.
Why the title tell her she's dreaming?
Okay.
And then also every chapter has a dream.
Yeah. I realized when I was writing the book that dreaming was a very prevalent theme in my life. Like I even went through my old magazines that I had issues that I had edited, and I was speaking in the editor's letter about chasing this dream that felt impossible as a kid from the other side of the world to come to New York and work in hip hop. Dreams had been really prevalent in my life. My mother is a dreamer. She wanted to be in the circus, God bless her whole life. But my grandmother was very salt of the earth. She raised 7 kids on her own basically, and worked 3 jobs. And so I had the really kind of down-to-earthness of my grandmother mixed with the dreaming of my mom. And I think that made me able to achieve those dreams, right? Because you can't have dreams without work ethic. And also in Australia, there's a very famous movie called The Castle. It's a very Australian movie. And there's a very famous Australian saying, and it's tell him he's dreaming, which is like, tell him he's dreaming. It's very ochre Australian, which is like you're having yourself on, right? Like you can't be serious. You're bugging.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Tell
You're
him he's
bugging.
dreaming.
That's right. Thank you for the translation. You're bugging. And so I female-ized. I made it feminine. So I made it tell her she's dreaming. Because my whole career, I've been told this will never happen. Right. Like who are you to think that you're going to get there? And I grew up reading The Source and I ended up being the content director of my favorite magazine ever. So I achieved those dreams and I'm very proud of that.
What's left? What are you still dreaming about? What do you still want to accomplish, if anything at all?
I am dreaming of moving into I've shifted into more of a mentor role. So that's very important to me, as we can see with the book. My heart is kind of still in New York, which is tough.
You want to come back to New York?
I feel like I'm living in two places. I feel like I belong here career-wise, but now I'm married and I have a 6-year-old beautiful daughter. Shout out to my beautiful family. I think they're listening online from Sydney. I don't know what time it is right now.
And your family's from Australia?
No, my husband's from New York, but I met him in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, life is crazy. I lived in Harlem for 10 years. He's from Harlem.
Wow.
And I met him when I moved back to Australia.
What the hell was he doing in Australia?
He had jobs there. Like he used to play basketball, but he had lived in Australia for a long time. He'd lived there like 15 years when I met him. And so, yeah, life is, you never know what's around the corner. But for me next, I'm kind of open to whatever happens next. I'm consulting and mentoring, and I'm writing more. Actually, I have an essay coming out soon.
Essay?
Like an op-ed?
Yeah, I'm writing about hip hop and Palestine.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
I see you talk about that a lot on Instagram.
yeah, I know we talk about it, Charlamagne and I, which I appreciate how open-minded you are about everything. And I just want to give you a special shout out on air for even allowing me to come up, because I disappeared from the scene for so many years. And, a lot of people forget. People, they leave the messages on read and you didn't.
You've always been solid. And
Yeah, thank you.
Like you said, you gave us our first
and your
big
photos
shoot.
in the book, man. So your photos in the book. So yeah, I'm writing an essay on that. I'm very passionate about hip hop started as an art form to be the voice of the voiceless, right? The voice of the oppressed. And I feel like there are a number of artists that are speaking out, and you've had them up on this show, but I feel like we could be doing a lot more. And hip hop's biggest stars are very loudly silent. So I'm trying to unpack that.
That's a conversation we've had a lot of here that
Yes.
some of the biggest celebrities haven't said anything.
Yes.
And for some people, they don't get into politics. They
Yes.
don't know. They don't understand. And what's your thoughts on it?
I think art is political. And I think that when we're watching a live stream genocide, that it's not hard to say, I just want innocent people to stop being killed. It's deeper than that, but on a very basic level. As an Arab woman, I feel like we're not humanized enough. And I would like to see my people be humanized. And I'm inspired by Nat Turner's rebellion. Like when I say I learned about Black history through hip hop, I learned about Black history. So I think that more people, it wouldn't be happening if more people stood up and said something. And really they're asking us to use our voices. That's all they're asking for. Please use your platform. Please use your voice. So this essay, it might ruffle a little feathers, but I feel like we get one life on this earth. And if I don't use that to kind of, I'm privileged and I feel like I should use that privilege for the greater good.
What do you think about the language surrounding it, right? Because like you hear politicians, they all say the same thing. They acknowledge what happened on October 7th, which we all can agree with a travesty. And then they say the hostages have to come home, and then it can be a ceasefire. What do you think of that language?
I think that we have to acknowledge that before October 7, there are thousands of Palestinian hostages that are in jail under no charges at all, men, women and children.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and that never gets spoken about. I think we have to acknowledge that Gaza has no control by land, air or sea. I think there are many factors that have dehumanized this population for decades that we're not taking into account prior to that operation on October 7. And so I think when we speak about this issue, and again, I'm not Palestinian, I am Lebanese, and Israel is constantly at war with southern Lebanon too. So I do have a vested interest in this, but it's a human issue. And I just think that if you keep sending bombs to a population, how is it going to stop? Like, I just think the narrative doesn't make sense. And we're being gaslit very much at the moment. And I think people need to understand there are a lot of people in pain right now.
So what do you think about what the U.S. is doing as far as saying, like Charlamagne said, we want peace, we this, but sending millions and trillions of dollars?
I think it's I was really nervous coming back to the States, but it's not just the U.S. Australia is complicit too. Europe is complicit. It's not just the U.S., but the U.S. is funding the arms that are committing a genocide. And so, but I also say on the flip side of that, I have to be really clear, it's happening in Sudan at the hands of Arabs to black people, right? So it's not just Israel that are committing an atrocity. They have the eyes because, as black poet June Jordan said, Palestine is the moral litmus test of the world. And that's why I think our eyes are on it. This is the Holy Land, right? But it is happening in Sudan as well. We all know it's happening in the Congo if you do your research for different. They're like, it's supremacy in all its forms. It's racism in all its forms. And I think that sometimes Charlamagne and I have talked about the lesser of the evils as well. And a lot of people are hurting and they don't want to hear that lesser of the evils talk, right? So to me, I don't have the answers, but I would just like my people to be humanized at the moment so we can take a step back and really look at what's happening, because Palestine was a land and it's getting smaller and smaller. Illegally, more of that land is being taken. And so to me, that is the issue of our time.
Now, you have a picture.
There's
one question. And last question.
Yes.
You have a picture here with Khaled. Have you and Khaled had a conversation? Because I know he's been a big topic of people feel like he should be speaking up more. So have y'all had a conversation?
I'm writing about Khaled in the essay.
That was my question. Who exactly are you?
I'm writing about Khaled in the essay. I'm writing about a couple others that go to the Middle East to party, make money from other countries in the Middle East. But when it's time to talk about our pain, radio silence. And I think that that's happened with black people for decades now, right? They want our rhythm and not our blues. That's the saying. And now we're feeling it. And so I acknowledge all that in the essay, right? And I see black people say to each other, why should we give a damn about them? They've never given a damn about us. And I acknowledge that too. And I think we have to be very honest and have these honest conversations about everything. And we can't move forward until that. But to your point,
have you spoke?
I have reached out to Khaled's people and we've spoken very briefly. I've been told that I'll put that in the essay and you can read about it. But no, we haven't directly spoken. Everyone has their own journey. I understand that. But as a Middle Eastern person, I know our community are heartbroken at his silence.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially in November with the election, especially in places like Michigan. Because the reality is America is always going to fund Israel's military. So it's just going to be interesting to see what happens.
What do you think will happen
as far as
in Michigan?
I really, truly don't know. I really don't know. I really have no idea. Because even when I think about all those people who voted, uncommitted in the primary, it's a part of me that's like, but if Trump gets in, it's going to be worse.
I don't know what's worse than genocide. I do know what's worse, and I understand what you're saying because I do understand that there are other issues, right? LGBTQI rights, abortion, there are huge issues on the table.
But that's what I mean when I say worse. I mean worse for Gaza.
Yeah. There's no worse for Gaza right now. There can't be. There can't be. There can't be. Like you said, if what you said is true, that America unequivocally stands with Israel, which is what Kamala Harris has said unequivocally, then how can there be worse? That change of power will be the exact same thing. So it's just done in different ways, probably. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not American. I'm married to an American. My daughter is a dual citizen, and I'm very vested in. I have I love this country. It's given me so many opportunities, but it does break my heart. The foreign policy of America obviously affects the world. America is still a superpower. I don't know if it always will be, and I don't know if Americans realize the shift in the view of this country around globally. Yeah. There has been a huge shift. And so, but people always say to me, oh, Americans, they only care about America. They don't care about the rest of the world. And I say, as someone who lived here for a decade, until you live here, you don't understand what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. You have to give Americans some grace because there's so much that goes on here that to take on, I've had conversations with friends, to take on some other tragedy is a lot mentally, because dealing with things day to day here is crazy enough. So I get that, but it's good to kind of be aware of what's happening that affects, because it's your tax dollars, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The last chapter is Don't Dream It's Over. Break that down.
Oh, the last chapter, Don't Dream It's Over. It's basically about, like you said, every chapter has the word dream in it. It's about never giving up. Like I said, my heart is still here in New York. I'm trying to bring New York to Australia in a lot of ways in what I do. And it's easy to say never give up when you feel like the light is never coming into the darkness. I got very sick with the Crohn's disease. I almost died. When I got home to Australia, my doctor was like, you are literally life or death. You are killing yourself to like survive in the music industry.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how much I wanted to chase this dream and make it real. But then I realized, like, your dreams can change as you change. And I think that's the lesson of the book. Like, you have these dreams that ignite your fire, but as life changes, the dreams change too.
Yeah.
And
I love that. Your dreams can change. What did you say? Your dreams can change
as you do.
As you change. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah. And so now I feel like a new burst of energy with the book. And you never know. Like, I'm up on the Breakfast Club. Like,
That's right.
it's all come full circle. Like, and I met you guys when this was just starting. Life is crazy. And it's so inspiring.
How did you deal with, because nowadays, like, people are so like, it's our culture and
Yes,
you can't come in, and it's all these think pieces on Twitter.
Yeah.
How do you, like, or did you even deal with that when you were first, not in Australia, but just here in New York, being a hip hop journalist, but not being like of the culture?
Right. I didn't really feel that until I got to the Source magazine, because that's obviously a venerated hip hop institution. And I had the conversation with the publisher, Londell McMillan, when he hired me, and we spoke about that. And he said, I'm actually hiring you because you are aware of your place and who you are.
Gotcha.
And he said, some of the staff have said, like, who is this girl? What's her pedigree? We don't know her background. They didn't know all the years that I'd put into working within the art form. And so for a little minute, I felt some imposter syndrome. But then I realized, look, I've never tried to be anybody but myself. And I've always encouraged, like I said, like, especially young Black women. Like, Nyla Simone was my intern at the Source.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. I know she's intern.
You know Nyla on tour right now with Rhapsody?
That's what I'm saying. She's on tour with Rhapsody, who I put in the freestyle sessions. So, like, I've always known my place, and I've always known that I really felt like this culture was not, and is not respected on the level that it should be globally. And even within the States probably, but like especially globally, people will go to the concerts, they love the music, but when it's time to show up at a protest, you know, they don't want to get their hands dirty. And I'm like, no. Like, we can't let Black people give us their gifts and not pay that back.
That's real.
In every way. And I've tried to do that. So, yeah, things have shifted a little bit. And I think rightfully so. I think that conversation is very needed. But I have always tried to be as respectful as possible in what I do and just contribute, because it's a global art form now. It was unleashed into the world from the 70s, and I'm a child of that. So I think my duty is to learn the culture, learn the roots, and just stand as much as I can. Yeah.
All right. Well, from down under to uptown New York City,
That's right.
our music helped one woman make big dreams come true.
Make
Tell
sure
her
you go
she's
tell her
dreaming.
she's dreaming right now.
Oh, thank you
right.
guys. Thank you so much.
And we appreciate you for joining us.
Thank you, Virgo.
It
It was my birthday last week too.
Oh, yeah, happy birthday. Happy
thank
belated.
you. Thank you.
Simone, Amelia, Jordan. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Wake that ass up.
In the morning.
The Breakfast Club.